Well, hey, in the interest of trying to write less, I'm going to do something new. So this is going to be an experiment of our mailbag because I get a lot of email from readers, a lot of signal messages, and so sometimes it takes me forever to get back to them because I'm trying to juggle doing super sexy privacy stuff and then doing the Monroe Gazette and then everything else on top of that. So it's a lot of work. So I thought it might be a little faster if we answered your questions this way. So if you don't mind, we're going to try this. And if you like it, we'll do it again. You can send me questions at bj@monroegazette.com. There's one Z and two T's in Gazette, monroegazette.com, bj@monroegazette.com. And you can also message me on Signal anonymously at bjmendelson.32, the number 32, bjmendelson.32 on Signal. So let's see what we got here in the mailbag this week. This is something from December. Things have been so crazy. So you might have missed this, but Chester has a land preservation deal. It's sort of the same thing that Blooming Grove was trying to get that Kathy Hochul vetoed. And Chester actually got it through and Blooming Grove didn't. And so people wanted to know what the difference is. I have a really long answer from Supervisor Geralman, who's up for re-election, by the way, that sort of gives his answer on it. And then we've got the Joel Stern version of events where he's talking about Blooming Grove and the land preservation deal. The thing that's important right now is that Blooming Grove is still trying to get that land preservation thing through. According to Stern, Blooming Grove snuck this through at the last minute that they're trying to do yet another attempt at the land preservation deal since Chester got one. And, Stern did his usual thing of calling Geralman anti-Semitic and the board is anti-Semitic and engaged in a conspiracy against the Jews. And, just the whole, like, completely bullshit, insane thing that real estate developers like Stern and Eckstein have gotten away with over the years is that if we don't get what we want, it's anti-Semitism, it's anti-Hasidim. I don't know where things stand right now with Blooming Grove's attempts at land preservation. That's the question that we keep getting asked. I don't know where that is right now. I will reach out to Supervisor Drallman. The town of Blooming Grove isn't very happy with me right now. We're trying to get information on single car police vehicle accident that occurred through a FOIL request, and they really haven't been cooperative with that. And also their police chief is running for mayor over in Monroe, which is super fucking weird. And so another question that we got, let me just make sure I'm reading this correctly. This question is, can the town of Blooming Grove police chief, Alex Malchiori, run for mayor of the village of Monroe? Like, can you hold both positions? And town of Blooming Grove doesn't have a problem with this, according to Supervisor Drallman. We didn't get a clear answer on what would happen if Malchiori is the Blooming Grove police chief and elected as the village mayor. You should know. You should know Wednesday the 18th, which is a week from when I'm recording this, is the Village of Monroe election. So if you live in the Village of Monroe, you make sure you get out there and vote. At this point, you know how I feel about Dwyer, Ferraro, and O'Connor. I like Neil Dwyer. I've met him. I don't always agree with everything that he's said and done. Clearly with the ICE thing, we don't agree. I like Andy Ferraro. He seems like a nice guy. He's also the only Democrat on the board. Not that that matters locally, because as we say at the Monroe Gazette, if you live in Orange County, and this is true for Rockland and parts of Sullivan, you don't have Democrats and Republicans. You have people that work for the real estate developers and people who don't. So um, we did reach out to the Attorney General's office to see if there's a conflict of interest. The New York State Board of Elections didn't identify a conflict of interest with Melchiori. So for whatever, that's worth. But as we see in New York, the laws are only enforced when you're on the opposite side of the people in power. And if you're working with the people in power, then they don't enforce any laws. And you just look at South Blooming Grove as a good example of that. So that's that question. We do have a story coming on Thomas DiNapoli. That was another one on his audit of South Blooming Grove and why he's hiding it. DiNapoli's office denies that they're hiding it. So this is from Jennifer Freeman, Director of Communications for Thomas DiNapoli. She answered two of our questions. So the first question we asked Jennifer L. Freeman, who again is Director of Communications for Thomas DiNapoli, was we wanted to know essentially like what is going on with the South Blooming Grove audit. It has never been mentioned in the weekly newsletter that DiNapoli releases. So if you go back through the archive of the weekly newsletter since March of 2024, to the president is never been mentioned. That doesn't mean it's not listed on the website. That's something they pointed out, was said that sometimes they list everything that they do on the website. But I specifically want to know what the holdup is. And so what they said about the South Women Grove audit is, quote, an audit will be issued when it is completed. During the audit, we identified matters requiring additional review, which has impacted the timing of the audit. All completed audits are released publicly and published on our website. They said they would stay in touch with us. That was the last time we've heard from them. I did send a follow-up request asking whether or not these irregularities were reported to the Attorney General's office or to the FBI. And so they said we can't elaborate on that, which of course, but you still sometimes, as a reporter, you have to ask obvious questions just to say that you asked, because sometimes people will get cute and be like, "Well, you never asked us." So okay, so let's see what other questions we have here. So another reader question was basically like, when we're talking about the situation in Chester, we only know what we know, and ICE lies. So anything that ICE says really can't be taken factually. Nothing. I think it's Personally, I think it's journalistic malpractice to take anything that the Trump administration says with 100% truth. That's what it is. Clearly, we now have example. Just to use something that I saw in the news this morning of the U.S. military dropping a U.S.-made Tomahawk missile on a girls' school. And there's a reporter, there's video footage I'm going to use in an upcoming Gazette post of a reporter saying to Trump, the U.S. military has evidence suggesting that we dropped a Tomahawk missile on a girls' school in Iran. And of course, his response was, "I don't know anything about that." So you can't take anything that they say seriously. It's just not a good method it's just unethical, I feel, as a journalist, which is why I'm supremely pissed at, Strauss News and the Photo News and their whole assortment of papers, because they've done what I feel is like both sidesing fascism with the Chester Warehouse, where they interviewed people who were excited about the Chester Warehouse or thought it was a good idea. And it's like, look, fascism, there's no two sides to this. As a journalist, your job is to answer, basically to protect your readers and answer their questions. Like a journalist is no different than a plumber, right? With the plumber, you call up a plumber because you have a problem. Hopefully not a terrible problem, because been there. But you call them up because you have a job that needs to be done. Like, you have a question that needs to be answered. You have a problem that needs to be solved. And journalist is the same thing. Like, the journalist's job is you give them money, or you give the media outlet they work for money, although that model is dead. Those days are over. So now the business model for journalism is you give the journalist money directly, and in exchange, journalists asks the questions that you have and gives you answers and tries to give you the truth. And so giving quoting something that is absolutely detrimental to a reader's health and safety, like people that are excited about a detention center opening up, or people that are, "Oh yeah, war in Iran is good, actually." Like, you don't need to do that. There's no two sides to fascism. It's wrong. It's evil. We know it's evil. We have collectively, as a society, agreed that it's evil. So anyway, like, it's a tangent, but this is a long way of saying with the Chester Detention Center, we don't know what's happening. Here's a fun rumor now, and I have to qualify this and tell you it's a fun rumor. So at the March 9th Village of Chester board meeting, Mayor Bell told a few people that were in attendance that, from what he was told, and we'll get to that in a second, from what Mayor Bell was told, this isn't proceeding with the warehouse. The warehouse was sold to someone else. And the reason ICE isn't proceeding is because of the presence of the bog turtle, which is an endangered species here in New York. It's a protected species. And so what that would have meant for ICE is there's all sorts of federal laws about endangered species or protected species. And even though ICE runs roughshod over pretty much whatever it wants, it would seem in this situation, if the mayor's story is to be believed, that ICE didn't want to go through the process of, all right, well, the bog turtle is here. How do we work around it? How do we mitigate it? Can we mitigate it? They didn't want to do any of that. Now, where is this information coming from? So some of you might know that Brian T. Boone on the Village of Chester board is the father-in-law for Assemblyman Brian Maher. And so Brian Maher, some of you know, claims, and there's no reason to, I don't think he's lying, to be blunt. Like, I don't think Brian Maher is lying to anybody, but the story goes is that Brian Maher spoke with someone who was somehow connected to the director of ICE. And after speaking to that someone else at ICE is alleged to have called Brian Maher and said, yeah, the Chester thing isn't happening. I have no reason to believe he's lying. Most people that I've talked to, including Chestertown Supervisor Brandon Holdridge, also doesn't believe that Brian Maher is lying. But the story is it's sketchy, right? Like, it's, you mean to tell me that this random ass New York State assemblyman, while away on active duty, had the time to speak with some higher up at ICE, who he won't name, and then someone else at ICE who he also won't name told him that it's dead. It's just sketchy. Like, again, I don't think he's lying. I'm not calling Brian Maher a liar, but um, as a journalist, my radar definitely went off when I heard that. So that's probably where all this information is coming from. So I suspect that, like, that the bog turtle thing is probably connected to this nexus between, like, Brian Maher and ICE and Boone and Mayor Bell. I don't think there's any reason to lie to people. I think everyone, from what I can tell anyway, like, everyone is just as confused as everyone else. So I tell you that because you might be hearing a lot about the bog turtle. My personal suggestion and hope is that if you are a graphic designer or artist, or if you know a graphic designer or artist, I definitely encourage you to make drawings and make art featuring the bog turtle. And maybe that's our sign here in Orange County that we use whenever we protest ICE or DHS or whatever else the regime is doing. Maybe the bog turtle should be our symbol. So that's sort of the bog turtle story. Let's see what else we got. So Scoofus put out a thing days after I said I was going to run for state senate. His newsletter is lowering prescription prices. And, like, let's listen. Any legislation that saves you money is good legislation. It doesn't matter if it's introduced by Scoofus. It doesn't matter who introduces it. Like, these things are good. So the fact that he's introducing legislation on this is great. Nobody's saying that that's bad. I don't think it's enough. I really don't. There's 1.2 million New Yorkers, myself included, who are going to lose their health insurance. No later than December 31st. Most of us will either have lost it or been kicked off of it for one reason or another, because the money that was originally going to Medicaid, much like for those of you who might be receiving SNAP, the money that went to SNAP and Medicaid, they took that out. And that's what's funding ICE. They took that money and moved it over, because I don't know if anyone pays attention to, like, how Congress budgets stuff. I do. And, the whole deal with the super conservative Republicans is no new tax increases. So anything that you want to spend on, you have to cut from something else. So when they want to spend all this money on ICE, it had to be cut from something else. And so that's where the money came from. And so you have 1.2 million New Yorkers who are going to lose their health insurance. You have hospitals, such as the one in Newburgh, which are at risk of closing, because a lot of hospitals in New York, and particularly upstate, are dependent on the aid that comes through Medicaid. Like, people don't, and this isn't anyone's fault, but the government, especially Democrats, but the government is really bad at explaining to people where their money goes and how it comes back to them in the form of services. So, like, people think Medicaid goes to poor people, um, but they don't understand that they are receiving Medicaid, right? Like, they don't, because the Medicaid might get to them through a different name or under a different company that is acting like a third-party service provider for the government to get you Medicaid. It changes depending on what state you're in. So they might not realize that they're getting Medicaid. And so that's part of the problem. And then the other part of the problem is that Medicaid doesn't just go and provide health insurance for people that can't afford health insurance. Medicaid goes to hospitals. It pays for a lot of different programs. And so when we talk about cuts to Medicaid, we're not just talking about taking insurance away from people. We're talking about taking money away from hospitals and all these different programs and offerings. And so all of that money went away to pay for ICE. And New York State, it's not that they're not doing anything. Like, to be clear, Kathy Hochul has asked permission to take people like myself who are on Medicaid and put us onto the lowest tier of health insurance that's provided through New York State. So that's something that the federal government has to approve. They are looking, if you look at the one house, one budget plan that was put out by the state Democrats this week, they're proposing a corporate tax hike, a billionaire tax. And what they want to do is use some of that money to patch holes in the system. The problem is that I feel that there are two kinds of people right now. There are people, and again, I don't care what political party someone is. I truly don't. I also don't care if someone's liberal or conservative. It doesn't. It's not a factor to me. Um, what's a factor to me is if you're a white supremacist, right? Like if you're a white supremacist, I have a problem. But if you're like a conservative Republican, then who cares? Anyway, so there are two kinds of people, and so the first group of people are people who understand that we're living through an emergency, and people who don't, and that's the other group. The majority of people are in that second group. And so when I looked at the Democrat, one house, one budget plan, which is just a proposal, like right now they're negotiating. This is just a big negotiation right now between the Assembly and the Senate and Governor Hochul. It's still not enough. Like it's just, you can see that these are mostly, not all, but most of these people, which I include Scoofus in this group, are wealthy. Our New York State representatives are the highest paid anywhere in America. And a lot of them are out of touch, and a lot of them just don't realize this is an emergency. Like this is a situation that's not going to get better. Like, as long as the regime is in place, they're going to continue to cut. They're going to continue to take things away. They're going to continue to obstruct funding that was already proportions to be spent. I am very concerned about FEMA funding, for example. Even with Kristi Noem out, the head of, well, we don't know how this is going to work, but under Noem, who was, remember, the head of DHS, so she's not just like, she was the head of DHS, and DHS covers like over 20 different federal agencies. One of them is FEMA. Under Kristi Noem, where anything over $100,000 she had to approve, and that delayed funding, and a lot of people got hurt, a lot of people died, and a lot of people didn't get the assistance they needed because of that. And so I have a great concern about what's going to happen this summer with FEMA once we start getting these severe storms again. So um, for for New York State, to me, it's not enough to just, it looks like they understand that there's a problem, but they don't. They're not acting as if there's a problem. There's a disconnect that's occurring, and that's what scares me. So this is all stuff to pay attention to. Like with Scoofus, again, it's great. You want to lower prescription prices, but what would be even better is having a universal healthcare coverage plan, which is the New York Health Act. Like that has been in committee for years now, and we know it'll save New York money. Even the Rand Corporation, which is as conservative can be, went out there and said, "Yeah, New York for all will save you money in the long run." Scoofus will tell you, well, it's too expensive, and he's right. Like he is right to say that. Like it's not criticism of him to say that it's too expensive. It is a criticism, though, for him to use that as an excuse to not pass this bill. Because if we pass the bill, we will save billions of dollars, and we will save millions of lives, and we will also make New York State much more affordable for people to stay here. The Democrats will always tell you, well, we don't want people to move to Houston or Florida. I think the Hochul quote last year was, we don't want to lose any more people to Palm Beach. Uh, no, people will say, if you give them health insurance coverage, that's a big chunk of money every month. You're talking about your drugs, your co-pays, your premiums, everything else, co-insurance. Sometimes you have surgery. Some insurance plans, want you to spend 10% out of pocket. So emergency rooms, you're talking about a couple $100 depending on your plan to check into an emergency room. Um, so this will take care of all of that. This will cover everything. And if you have Medicare, it doesn't change your Medicare at all. Like you still have Medicare, but and so I think about we have an older community in Orange County. New York State's population is also on the older side. We have a lot of baby boomers, and a lot of them need dental coverage. A lot of them need vision coverage. A lot of them need hearing coverage, and they don't get it through Medicare. So um, I tell you this because I saw the newsletter and I was like, what a joke. Because he's just going to do the minimum. And, there's a lot of ways that this campaign, and remember, it's not a campaign. The whole point of me running is to make the New York Health Act front and center, and to make sure that you know about what it is, what it does, and that you're demanding it be passed. I don't care if like 500 people vote for me. I care if like 2,000 people call Scoofus and call Ekus and call Bramanak and call Mar and call all the other Orange County Assembly people, and they start demanding this. Like that's a win. Like that's how I win. So we'll talk much more about that later. So we have here, I've got this like long, crazy email that I'm not going to answer. A lot of people wrote to volunteer for the campaign, which is really cool. Thank you for that. I will have more information for you soon. I'm not there yet. There's a lot that has to be done. And, okay, my full-time job is helping to take care of a couple of disabled adults. And I do the Monroe Gazette as a hobby. It's not really a job. Thank you, though. Like for everyone that's reached out, I will get back to you. I will absolutely get back to you. I got another question here of like, how do I find and Brandon, how do I find Alex Malcuri's campaign finances? He hasn't filed them. It's as simple as that. Like he's running ads. Like someone is definitely paying for road signs, and he had at least one advertisement in the photo news. And someone is. It could be him. It could be out of pocket, which is totally cool. But he is running with the backing of the majority political faction in Curious Joel. That's not a bad thing. I want to be clear. You can tell people to vote for whoever. Like it's a free country. The problem, I just had this whole conversation with someone. Like the problem in Orange County isn't that there's a block, and we've seen this in Woodbury. Like I've now actively been involved with 3 elections, and the elections I've been involved with, I've won all 3. So, and we've beaten the block in all 3. And the reason is simple. Like people don't vote. That we may have the highest paid elected representatives in New York State, but we also have one of the lowest voter turnouts across America. And so the reason why the block vote is even a thing, um, and for historic context, when people say the block vote, what they're referring to is before the creation of Palm Tree. It is true that voters in Curious Joel, unlike the other voters in Monroe, would come out and vote for a candidate. And they did have a system that would make sure that everyone voted. And sometimes that got a little sketchy. Um, and that, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I'm not saying that's okay. But if their political party wants to endorse someone, I just don't care. What I care about is voter turnout, because when we vote, we win. When we vote, there is no block to worry about. And that's true in Rockland County. That's true in Sullivan County. That's true in Orange County. If you come out and vote, you don't have to worry about a block. But we do know that the majority of political parties backing Melchiori, and he's doing it, and by it, I mean running for mayor of Monroe with the backing of Lipa Deutsch. Some of you may know that name. He is usually the middleman for a lot of the big projects. Like he works on behalf of, or he's a representative of a property developer. So a good example is Monroe Commons, where Lipa Deutsch was sort of the front man for that. Deutsch is also the one that claims that he paid Tony Cardone money under the table in order to advance Monroe Commons. Of course, Mr. Cardone stopped a town board meeting to deny that claim. So I'm not saying it is factually. I'm just saying that's something Mr. Deutsch has claimed and others. And the other guy is Avram Floor. So Avram Floor is another landlord in the Village of Monroe. Both of them own property in the Village of Monroe. Both of them have like a litany of building complaints. I just got all those complaints from the Village of Monroe through FOIL. So essentially what's happening in Monroe is that you've got Lipa Deutsch and Avram Floor and maybe other people who are pushing for Alex Malchiori and Nancy Pfeffer, or Pfeiffer. I don't know how you say her name. I apologize to Nancy for saying her name wrong if I did. And former Monroe Mayor Joe Mancuso. And those are the people that are running with the support of Floor and Deutsch and the major political party in Curious Joel. Do with that information what you will. The concern that I have is, you want to avoid a South Monroe situation where, George Quaj is a puppet and he just does, and we can say it's factually, he just does whatever Isaac Epstein and Joel Stern tell him. So we definitely don't want that to happen in Village Monroe. So people have wrote and said, like, how can I find Melchiori's campaign donations? So I sent them steps. I just wanted to give you the steps. There's 6. Number 1 is go to elections.newyork.gov. It's elections.newyork.gov. Click on campaign finance. Click on search candidates and disclosure. Then you're going to click on contributions by recipient. And then you can see over on the left where it says candidate name. So just for example, you'll enter Melchiori, and a little box will pop up as you're entering. Like, don't spell out his whole name, just write like Melchio, and a little box will show up as you're completing his last name, and it'll say Alessio Alex Malchiori, Mayor 580753. You will select that little box that pops up, and you're going to click on the search button. You could repeat these steps for any candidate, and you will see all their contributions. And just for my campaign, I'm not taking contributions over $35. I'm not taking contributions from LLCs or PACs or anything remotely connected to the real estate business, unlike Mr. Scoofus. Okay, let's see what else we got real quick. Here's what I wish people would know about Facebook. It is not an accurate reflection of reality. Monroe Matters and Families of Woodbury look huge until you realize that most of those accounts are people that don't fucking live there, or people that used to live there, or they're just bots, or there are troll operations. Like if you read the Mueller report, going back to 2016, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and also lots and lots of bad actors here in America run troll farms. And how it works is you hire someone, you go to like Fiverr.com, you find someone in the Philippines who knows English really well, and you say to them, look, I will pay you $3 for every like negative Facebook post that you leave, or every pro-Trump Facebook post that you leave. I'll just pay you. And there's billionaires that pay for this stuff. I used to work in PR and marketing. This is not something I'm pulling out of my butt. This is something that I've firsthand done for and organized campaigns on behalf of multi-million-dollar corporations who do this exact thing. They call it astroturfing. It's a really old term, but there's a lot of astroturfing in every Facebook group. Like Facebook as a platform is inundated, mostly because when Trump voters they skew white, they skew older. A lot of them are like small business owners, but they, they tend to use Facebook is what I'm trying. Demographically, they tend to use Facebook, and so um, if you ever like post something on Facebook and you're like, wow, that didn't get a lot of engagement, let me tell you that the numbers you see don't matter. Like the likes don't matter because I've posted stuff where I've seen no engagement, but it'll be something that I get stopped for and people will ask me about, or I'll get a ton of emails about, or I'll see like something that I'll post on Facebook that doesn't get a lot of engagement will get a lot of traffic on the Monroe Gazette. So I urge you to not take these numbers seriously and to also not think if you post something on Facebook, your work is done because it's not. Like if you're posting about politics, about Woodbury, for example, uh, in a Woodbury group, that's great, but you're only reaching like 1% of the entire community. You are missing so many people out there. And so anytime we talk about Facebook, I always have to just, be careful with what you see on Facebook. Because a lot of it's bullshit, a lot of it's fake. I try my best to fact check. I do, and a lot of other people do as well. And so I get these screenshots. Like I get these screenshots from like from Monroe Matters. So like I got one here from like Rich Goldstein, and it's a picture of a house, and there's a bunch of boxes in front of it, and he's like, "This is what happens under the current administration of Village of Monroe, and we need change, and that's why you should vote for Alex Malcurie." That's bullshit. Malcurie is going to make. Here's my bet. I would bet let's see, what can I bet that's like not that's valuable and important, but not. I bet my pinky. I bet my pinky finger. If you go to Worley Heights right now, if Alex Malcurie and Nancy Pfeiffer and Joe Mancuso are elected to the Village of Monroe board, I would bet you my pinky that by the end of their term, the Village of Monroe will look like Worley Heights right now. So when you see someone post crazy shit on Facebook, like, you can ignore it. And thank you for like this isn't a complaint about people sending me screenshots. Like thank you for sending me the screenshots because it's the only way I see it. Like that's the only way I would know that Catherine Luciani is out there gathering signatures for Paul Arteta, the pro ICE Paul Arteta. So it's good to keep an eye on this stuff, but again, like just be careful. So let's see what else we got. Am I researching the bog turtle? Yes, I am researching the bog turtle. Yeah, I promise you I'm looking into that. For the record, ICE did not, I asked ICE. ICE does get back to the Monroe Gazette, which is really funny. It's funny, like, who writes us back and who doesn't. Like, people that you would never think would write us, like the White House wrote us back. The White House wrote us back. But like, if I try to ask Thomas DiNapoli a tough question, we don't get an answer. I've tried to ask Kathy Hochul repeatedly. I know some of you have seen the commercial she put out, but there was a guy with like a vanity license plate that was revoked by the DMV, and so she recorded a campaign commercial where she calls him up and she's like, "Well, I'm working real hard on behalf, and I think everyone should pee before you go because that's what the license plate said, and I'm happy to get this done for you." And then so I wrote to Hochul's press people. I was like, "Look, she's got time to comment on this, but she has not released any statement on South Women Grove. None. Nothing on the water, like nothing on misappropriation potentially of federal funds, nothing on this forever comptroller audit, nothing about the stolen election. And just you name the subject that we talked about in South Women Grove, and Hochul has not commented on any of it. So it's funny, like who responds to us and who doesn't. And just generally speaking, like this is a good pro tip, is that Republicans will um, Republicans will always get back to journalists. Always, 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 always. And they might be completely full of shit. Like last year, there was something that we were doing at the Monroe Gazette, and I don't remember what it was, but I called. It involved something that was being discussed on the Senate floor, and I called Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. You know, the one with the fake. What's the Foghorn Leghorn? You know, the one with the fake like Foghorn Leghorn accent. We called them up. We asked for comment. They got right back to us. I didn't speak to the senator directly, but like head of communications called us right back. And we called Schumer and Gillibrand. Same thing. Never heard back. So Republicans, generally speaking, are like very good. Like they're very good at, even if they're telling you bullshit, like they're very good at communicating the bullshit, and just Democrats are not. BJ, have you heard anything about 58 Fort Worth? Yes, we're still working on the helicopter thing. Um, I'm kind of working in conjunction with somebody. I won't tell you who. I'm sort of waiting for their thing to come out, for my thing to come out, because then it's timely. I noticed with South Bloom Grove stuff, because there's so much that it's best to write about it when people are thinking about it. So I will have a follow up on the helicopter. I'm just kind of waiting for this thing to come out, which should be soon. So yes, and I'm walking into the bog turtle, and this question says, BJ, if you looked into permits for 58 Fort Worth. So there's a couple of court cases that have been decided recently that are really important. The first one is in Town of Bloom Grove versus Village of South Bloom Grove and the DEC. And that's the Clovewood case. Like that's the one that we've been following for really. I think if you're watching this and if you made it this far in, you're probably aware of like this court case. A safe bet you're aware of this court case. But there was a new judge that was assigned to the case, and the new judge decided no one has standing. Town of Bloom Grove doesn't have standing, and the three or four, I forget the number. Forgive me. Of number, there was a number of residents at South Bloom Grove that joined the lawsuit to sue, and they said they don't have standing either, which is it's bullshit. Like I've talked to the lawyers involved. It was a bad decision. One of the plaintiffs in that case, their property is being flooded by work that's being done on the Clovewood property. So how you can say that they have not suffered an injury, which would give you standing, it's just bullshit. It's a bullshit. It's like I know I hate saying that to you. I hate saying that to you because it feels like a cop out. Because it feels like I'm not doing my job of looking into it. But it's just a bullshit decision. Please don't take that to mean they control the courts. We need to stop as a community with the like they thing. If you feel that you can say it is something that is factually true, that has been categorically reviewed and documented. It is a fact. It is a fact. In New York State, you can say factually that the Satmar have considerable political influence. That's not a thing that you need to hide from to say. It's a fact. Like it's 50 years of factual evidence to suggest that. The same way it's okay to criticize Israel, it's okay to have criticisms of the Satmar community. It's not okay if you say shit like, "Oh, they control the court," because then it sounds like you're starting to get like into anti-Semitic conspiracy theory territory, which is what you don't want. But it is okay to say, look, the New York State Democratic Party in particular, and we can say this because there's an instance if for people, look, I wasn't born here. I was born on Long Island, but I grew up here. So when I went to elementary school, I remember distinctly the Supreme Court case between Curious Joel and what was it? Like it was Curious Joel, and I don't remember if it was Monroe Woodbury that was suing or it was someone on behalf. Like I don't remember. It was the Curious Joel Supreme Court case, and I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. But basically, Governor Cuomo was asked, Mario Cuomo, not Andrew. Mario Cuomo was asked, and they said, if the Supreme Court says that the Curious Joel School District is illegal, what are you going to do about it? And he said, well, we're just going to redo the law. And if they strike it down, we'll redo the law. He said that. Like, he said that. That was a national TV interview where he said that. So you can say, as someone who lives in South Bloom Grove, as someone who lives in Rockland County, as someone that lives next to where Kira Scaver is being built in Bethel, you can say, factually, that the Satmar have demonstrated outsized political influence. Now, do we know for a fact that that political influence played a role in this case? I can't, as a reporter, say that to you. I don't know. Is it possible? Certainly is. It certainly is possible. It's the same reason why Letitia James won't act on South Monroe, right? Like it's the same. The New York State Democratic Party over the last 50 years has decided because people in New York State don't vote, that they will work for people who do vote. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that isn't. We should be able to talk about that. Like we should be able to say, the reason why the Satmar community might get what we perceive as preferential treatment is because they vote. We don't vote. Like if we voted, you wouldn't have this problem. It's on us. It's not a them thing. It's an us thing. We don't show up is really what the problem is. It's not they. It's not the block. It's us. We are the problem. So 58 Fort Worth Place. Oh, right. Okay. So Clovewood, they ruled against it. I did reach out to the supervisor to see if they're going to appeal. I don't know if anyone's going to appeal the decision. So basically, it means Clovewood is, unless there's some other kind of action involving, let's say, an FBI raid or something like something along those lines. Unless that happens, Clovewood is probably going to be built. So I don't think it's the end of that story. I don't. I feel like there's some stuff coming that I can't talk about, and maybe it's just me as an optimist, but I feel we haven't even begun the fight. Like we really haven't. Like I don't. If I had a car, I would be out there right now knocking on doors, getting my petition signed. And I would be out there knocking on doors saying, if you live in South Blooming Grove, I need 30 of you. Like I need 30. We have 6. I need 30. 30 property owners in South Blooming Grove who want to go to a court and say, I want to do what Thomas DiNapoli won't do, which is a complete audit of the village's finances. And then I want you to release those documents because I think in those documents we're going to find crime. And if we find crime, then it becomes one of those things of maybe these people get prosecuted. So there's a lot that's going to happen, I think, with South Blooming Grove. So don't take the Clovewood case being thrown out as like, yeah, and it's not. So the other court case was involving Gonzaga Park. There were 2 Orange County lawsuits against the village of South Blooming Grove. One was about a completely illegal attempt at eminent domain. And that's the one that the court ruled on recently and was like, yeah, this is completely illegal. You can't do that. So that Orange County won that case. And now you've got the other case, which is, I suspect Orange County, I shouldn't say that because I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to do like the commentator's curse, right? Where I say that Orange County will win only for them to lose tomorrow. But I'm optimistic that Orange County is going to win that case. And I think that is causing something to happen over at 58 Fort Worth. I want you to pay attention to. This is sort of the last thing that we'll talk about today because I've already talked longer than I thought I would. Over at 58 Fort Worth, as you know, is the helicopter and the helipad. And that's also like where George Collage alleges that he lives. I don't think he lives there. The Monroe Gazette has kept tabs on that place for well over a year. He's rarely, if ever, there. I thought it was really funny that the one time that like actual real reporters, if you will, came to his door, that was like the one time that Collage was there. That's a whole story that we haven't told yet, but we're going to get to that. So whether or not he lives there or not is besides the point at this moment. What is important is that 58 Fort Worth, part of the plan for the Mansion bypass was to build a road through connecting from Seven Springs Mountain Road, or adjacent to Seven Springs Mountain Road, I should say, that would go through Gonzaga Park and then empty out into, you go through Woodbury and then you go really briefly, there's a tiny slice of Woodbury, and then you go into Curious Joel at the end of Seven Springs Road, Mountain Road. And so Stern for years has been talking about the Mansion bypass, and we're going to build this road. So the concern now is, okay, let's say they got Clovewood, but let's say now that they lose these Orange County cases. Knowing these schmucks, and I can say this because I've been following this for over 2 years, these schmucks will most likely try some other kind of end run. And the concern now is, okay, are they going to like try to build some sneaky bullshit through 58 Fort Worth Place? So this is a thing to watch, especially if you're a town of Monroe resident, because in the town of Blooming Grove court case, one of the things that the town of Blooming Grove alleged was that South Blooming Grove illegally took land from the town, Blooming Grove, which they did. They totally did. Like they like expanded the Clovewood property way bigger than it should have been. And that expansion covered land that did not belong to the village of South Blooming Grove. So the concern is that that's going to happen in Monroe. And so I've already alerted, Supervisor Richardson, the town of Monroe Building Department. We've also put in a FOIL request for all documents. I can't keep my glasses up. We've also put a FOIL request for all documents involving 58 Fort Worth and all permit requests. Of course, given that the Monroe Gazette is the one asking, they delayed it 90 business days, so it's going to be a while before we get anything. There is another journalist that's working on this and has also put in a FOIL request for permits concerning 58 Fort Worth, but this is something you want to watch because I fully suspect you're going to see some kind of cheat when it comes to this mansion bypass. Okay. Last but not least, do we have? Okay. Does it make sense to call Orange County if you don't live in Orange County? So this is part of the New House campaign where we're asking people to send ice scrapers, and the answer is yes. It doesn't matter where you live right now. There will come a point where it's important for Orange County residents to step up and be heard, but right now we're just going for volume. We're just going for noise. And so if you live in Dutchess County, if you live in Ulster County, if you live um, anywhere within 50 miles of Chester, and you're upset about the concentration camp, you should absolutely call Steve Newhouse's office and tell him you don't want it, and tell him to sign and pledge publicly to sign an emergency ban that would prevent ICE from setting up anywhere in Orange County, a detention facility or a concentration camp. Because as we know, with what happened in New Windsor, which was a story broke by the Monroe Gazette, which Congressman Pat Ryan refuses to credit us for, which I did say he left his balls in Iraq, so I understand if Pat's got some issues with us. I stand by that statement, by the way. And if you want to know why, you can just stick around next week and I'll tell you why. Uh, so yes, like it is still important to send him your ice scrapers. It is still important to make phone calls. It is still important. We should be jamming his phone line. Like the phones in Orange County's government should ring every day, every hour until that emergency ban is passed, period. And that takes everybody. That takes everybody in our region who might be impacted by ice. And I was trying to tell the ICE group that I'm a part of, the other concern is that if you live near an ICE detention center, they're gathering information on you, whether you know it or not, or whether you like it or not. And most of that information is commercially available. So you might not live in Orange County, but they might say to a data broker, give us data on everyone that lives within 50 miles of Chester, New York. And within 50 miles is Poughkeepsie. Within 50 miles is Newburgh. Within 50 miles is New Paltz, right? Within 50 miles is Nanuet. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who aren't in Orange County who may get caught in this dragnet as part of ICE's process to protect their detention center. So it is a matter that will affect you if you don't live in Orange County, which is why it's so important to call. So yes, I got that question a lot. Thank you for letting me answer that. Other questions? Let's see. Am I taking volunteers for my campaign? Yes, please stick around and stay tuned. Okay. People want a list of quick things that they can do about the ICE detention center. So I'm working on that. Let's see. What is the Orange County legislature doing about ICE? So we haven't been able to confirm. I haven't been able to get a straight answer on this. And that's not, that could just be they don't want to say. Because sometimes you don't want to tell a reporter. Like, I get it. So what I've been informed of is that at least the Democrats had put together legislation that would be the emergency ban. But they want Newhouse to commit to publicly signing it because Newhouse has to sign it. The same way Newhouse has to be the one that terminates the agreement between DHS and ICE to house people at Orange County Jail. He also has to be the one to sign this emergency ban. And so they're kind of dragging their feet on it. I'll have more to say about that. That's something that I'm working on right now. But you should call your Orange County legislator. You should say, we don't know what's happening with ICE and DHS at Chester. We don't know what's happening in New Windsor. We don't know if they're going to expand their presence in that building. We don't know. There's just a lot we don't know. So we would really like some kind of reins put in on what ICE can and can't do in Orange County. And the faster we do that, the better. Like the time to act is well past over. So if you have an Orange County legislature representative, even if they suck, even if they're Peter Toohey, you should still absolutely call them. Let me do a quick plug here while I'm sitting here, and then we'll wrap this up. So No Kings is on March 28th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. in the Village of Monroe at the corner of Lake Street. That's going to be the Monroe location. There's going to be locations throughout the entire day. So if you live in Warwick, if you live in Middletown, if you live in Cornwall, if you live in Newburgh, if you live in Middletown, March 28th, you likely have, or Goshen, you have a No Kings event. You can go to one or all of them. I personally would love to see people come to Monroe. I have like this crazy, I have this thought that when we get to November, we're probably not going. So to be clear, the Trump administration cannot cancel the midterm election, so they cannot cancel it. They can interfere with it. They can station ICE at the polls. They could claim an emergency, perhaps using the pretext of we went to war with Iran for no reason and we're spending $1 billion a day with no plan. It's an emergency. They can create a pretext that would allow them to seize ballot boxes, but they can't prevent you from voting. And so my concern is I'm curious about how many people we can get. Like if we put out a call that says, we want you to show up, can we get people out? And so this is sort of my call to say, there's a lot of places you can go, but a lot of you came to Monroe from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. I think that would just be just a good test to see if we as Hands Off Hudson Valley, Disclosure, I'm a steering committee member, we as the Monroe Gazette, whether or not we have the capability of driving people and getting them out when we make suggestions. So that's going to be March 28th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. March 14th at the corner of Lake Street and 17M at 1 p.m. is going to be our regular stand-up. I'm not always at these for a lot of reasons, but I will try to get to them now that the weather's a little better. It's a great place for people to come and sign a petition. Intense, wink, wink, not judge. But we do have things coming up. So that's all. If you like this, we'll do more of it. If you have a question, you can email me at bj@monroegazette.com. Gazette has 1 Z and 2 T's. bj@monroegazette.com. Or you can find me on Signal anonymously at bjmendelson.32. And we also have a P.O. box where as long as you don't put a return label, you can send us mail anonymously. It's P.O. Box 5, 996 Route 17, Stop 2, Arden, New York, 10910. That's like an anonymous Dropbox. You can send us anything anonymously. I check it on occasion. I'll go and pick it up. That's all I got. If you like this, we'll do it once a week, maybe. Yeah, just stay safe, be careful, and get vaccinated.